Rightio, thank you. We'll reconvene the hearing. And to this morning's submitters who I'm about to pose questions to, please don't take any offence from my questions. They're not intended to cause offence. Take my questions as a sign of respect because I want to make sure that I fully understand your evidence.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. So have you got that first document in front of you that I showed you?
Yes.
Okay, so if you can turn to page 5 of that document. No, this is the document that was supplied in support of the submission of Nai Tamawera Hapu, Te Tarawa Hapu, etc. Yeah, it's a 10-page document. Okay. So at the top of page 5 in capitals, see in the second line, it talks about the puna and then it says spring in brackets. And you may have already answered this question to Commissioner Coffin, but just for my sake, when you say spring, do you mean the Awaiti Canal aquifer, or do you mean an actual spring on the ground surface?
Both.
Okay, so in the rest of the documentation where I see the word spring, I should read that as meaning the aquifer and surface springs related to that aquifer.
Yes.
Would that be correct?
Yes, please.
Okay. Now, on that same page, do you see about 4 paragraphs down, there's a paragraph that starts, there is an intricate whakapapa. And do you see in the second line, the words in bold, it says, the aquifers serve as a safe haven and an intricate transport route. And my questions are, could you just explain to me what you mean by safe haven and what you mean by intricate transport route?
Yes. This speaks to the liveliness of the groundwater system itself, it being interconnected and an access way for taniwha, tarakura, taratua, tūtarakauika, and others across the whole groundwater system.
Okay.
With respect to safe haven, it is a safe haven for them. They are an indicator.
Yep.
But also it is a safe haven for the pristine water, mineral water itself.
Oh, sorry, I didn't quite hear that last bit.
It's a safe haven for the water itself.
Okay. Now, just before, on that same page, and you see there's a heading with the number 4, Ngāti Awa Chief, and just above that in capital letters, it says exploitation of aquifers will have an impact on the Māori and of the associated springs. And we've clarified that the springs means the aquifer and the surface springs. I just wanted to ask you about the impact on the Māori of the groundwater to make sure I fully understand that, because that's not a concept that I've come across a lot in the past in other hearings. Do all groundwater abstractions adversely affect the Māori of the groundwater?
They can. In this instance, we know that in the lower catchment of the Awaiti aquifer area, there is a municipal supply drawn from part of the system. Mm-hmm. And in the vicinity of that area, there's a high iron content in the water body. So when we have an interconnectedness between these groundwater systems, the perched aquifers and others, as have been described in the reports prepared by the applicant and others, that there's a potential for an incursion inside one aquifer to another. So our concern is that there is a potential for the aquifers with different qualities to impose those qualities or adverse effects on another aquifer. this one, o tākiritanga o te toki a ira tūmoana, is demonstrably a pristine mineral water supply, and it appears has percolated through the ground from one direction to another over a period of decades. So it has a very high quality, yet there are other aquifers around it that don't have the same type of quality.
Yep. Does the ground, does the groundwater abstraction for water bottling degrade the Māori more than a groundwater abstraction for, say, municipal supply or for irrigation?
This is an essential question. It's one we need to turn our minds to.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we need to discuss and determine over more time than the 20 working days resource statutory consenting process, which really points to the relief that we seek in the Te Runanga o Ngāti Awa submission.
Okay, so is an answer to that maybe, but you haven't really had a chance to turn your minds to it yet?
That would be correct, as well as this, it's a question larger than one that can be answered by Ngāti Awa alone, is our proposition. It's something that ought to be involving members of the community and best placed in the hands of regional council to facilitate for that conversation to be had in the context of the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management, which includes policy and objective D, which relates to te mana o te wai and te mauri o te wai.
Mm-hmm. As a follow-up question, the documentation talks about the commodification of the aquifer. Does that word commodification relate directly to bottling the water and then selling the bottled water? Is it what you mean by commodification?
Yes, it's the question of what type of activity is this. It's not one that has been identified in regulation or provided for. It's not known whether this is an industrial activity or a rural production activity, which was part of the conversation yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult then to make an assessment of the water bottling activity. It's much easier to bring a bunch of perspectives to it, which create even greater questions as well. For example, the value of water. Those words will have a great deal of meaning for many different minds, but one way of thinking of the value of water is in respect to the quality of the water. If this is indeed high quality water, and its uses are wide and varied, then some may say that a use, let's say for dairy shed use, would be an improper use of that particular quality of water. Mm-hmm. So these are the kinds of questions that we feel are more appropriately dealt with in a managed way under the Freshwater Futures program at Regional Council, which would cultivate a community to come together and discuss the activity of water bottling. As well as that, it gives the opportunity to set some limits for this particular aquifer, given 3 out of 7 consents issued in the region are for water bottling are issued off this aquifer.
Yeah. In terms of the concern about commodification, is that underpinned by the fact that the bottled water will be sold overseas? If it was sold solely in New Zealand, would that be of less concern?
Again, another question, an essential one that needs to be taken through a process of deliberate, managed conversation. We haven't arrived at an answer for that, but we have a set of questions that need debate.
Yeah.
So this is, you're coming to the essential point of the relief that we seek. Again, we can't be an iwi that tries to answer all of those questions, whether wittingly or not. And we would be concerned that there's decision-making being undertaken in respect to, let's say, constitutional issues that are light, there are some constitutional issues that are decisions for central government and iwi to converse about.
Yeah.
Yet there are other constitutional issues alight, and it came to the question that Commissioner Coffin raised, and that is the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi and its content are part of the fabric of our relationship, so therefore ought to be recognised and provided for in a consenting decision, in our view.
Yep, okay. I'm now at the top of page 6. And you see in the third line it says Otakiri Spring. Is that a particular surface spring, or is that just a general reference to the aquifer?
I believe that's a specific reference to the spring, and that Tumiro with which it connects is across the river, and Tumiro is a wetland. In fact, Tumiro Farm is now owned by Ngāti Awa and a consortium of partners, and the Tumiro wetland and lagoon is a wetland feature which we believe has a connection with Otakiri Spring.
Sorry, I missed the last sentence.
We believe that Tumiro would have a connection with Otakiri Spring.
Okay. Now I'm on page 7 now, under the heading Resource Management Act. And you see under 7.1 where it says there's no science, etc. And so this document would have been written before the applicant wrote their evidence. So when this document was written, you wouldn't have had a chance to read the applicant's evidence. But in terms of this issue, have you had a chance to read the applicant's evidence from their groundwater expert, Mr. Goff?
I've read a number of documents. I'm not sure if I can remember reading Mr. Goff's. Apologise.
Having read the documents you have read, is this concern still a live concern?
It is. We're not satisfied that there is sufficient information. We understand that there were 2 bores put down by the applicant. We understand that there was some modelling also provided for. In considering that, we also appreciate that in the water availability report, for example, it talks about that document being a guideline and that there'd be incremental advancements on the baseline information that will most likely come from metering and so on. Any changes to consents that are issued or surrendered, etc. Really about the rate of take and the volume of take from the aquifer. So those are the 2 key concerns for us. It's understanding what the implications of the rate of take and the volumes of take are on the groundwater system and the extent to which the groundwater system exists and the interconnectedness and dynamics of that groundwater system. Our concerns are that if this groundwater system, given that those bores were within a relatively tight proximity to the proposed spring, for which there's a proposal to increase water volumes of take and rates of take, that information took a small area of the aquifer and assessed it of that aquifer. But we don't know to what extent the cumulative effects of the takes from all of the bores that enter the aquifer were taken into account, and the broader implications of outside of the closest proximity with which the 2 bores were taken, what the effects might be for the overall groundwater system to which this aquifer connects.
Right, so to put that into Western terms, you'd be concerned about potential cumulative effects on the aquifer.
We are,
from
indeed.
This application plus all the existing bores.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. 7.2, you talk about the life supporting capacity of the water. I just want to clarify, are you still there referring to the aquifer, or does that include Hallett Drain? There's been a number of submitters concerned about the impact on the drain water quality. So what did you mean here, the aquifer or the aquifer and the drain?
Again, interconnected. We just don't know or you mean both. We don't know to what extent the land use activities above have an effect on Hallett Drain, and Hallett Drain therefore has an effect on the groundwater aquifer to which it may connect.
Mm-hmm.
So there are too many questions to...
Yep, okay. 7.3, don't worry, I don't have a question for every paragraph. You say there is no mitigation for the potential to destroy the Māori of the water. Did you mean that the applicant didn't propose any mitigation, or that simply there cannot be any mitigation?
It's our belief there cannot be any mitigation by the time a problem arises, and it cannot be tracked back to where the source of the problem was, and there may be argument as to where that source is. There is a potential for the aquifer, this aquifer, to degrade in its quality, or to be degrading the quality of other aquifers and wetlands and features.
And so again, without wanting to put words into your mouth, but if I was to write down, the concern there might be that adverse effects, should they arise, might be irreversible?
Indeed, we believe they would be irreversible.
Okay.
If, for example, there was saltwater intrusion, how do you turn that back? If there were, indeed, as there have been reported in the past, leaks in the Tasman Mill wastewater ponds, and the potential for those contaminants to enter this aquifer and others around it, or even the activities that are occurring on the geothermal field, given that's all below the ground as well. Because it's below the ground, we just cannot know the extent unless we study it and gather as much information as we can.
Yep.
We're not sure that an adaptive, an evolutionary type of approach is the best approach at this juncture. It's about timing as well. That may be kei te pai a little bit later on, once there's more information gathered about the extent and dynamics of this groundwater system. That will take time, more time than a consenting process takes.
Okay, now over on page 8, under 7.7.1. And it says there, the application does not adequately recognise or provide for, and then the first bullet point, the role of tangata whenua as kaitiaki. So apart from declining the consent, which is, I take it, the primary relief now,
Yes,
of
it is.
Ngāti Awa, how else might the role of tangata whenua as kaitiaki be recognised?
By entering into engagement that is meaningful with iwi and hapu for the purpose of identifying values and interests in this freshwater resource, and to develop regulation, including limits for it, that have been developed with iwi, hapu and the community, so that those regulations reflect the tangata whenua values and interests in water. That would be consistent with the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management. That would also take our community and foster their capacity, as is suggested in Section 81 of the Local Government Act, to participate in better contributions to council decision-making on these types of activities.
Yep. And when you say limits, do you mean limits for the aquifer overall, or particular limits for how much water can be taken for water bottling?
In this instance, I'd suggest that given the high quality of this water, that there is an opportunity to develop limits for the water bottling activity of this aquifer, as well as water quantity and water quality limits overall in the Tarawera catchment.
Yeah. Okay. Page 10 now, last page of this document. Second paragraph, the words in bold, there's little information available to assess the efficiency of a bottling plant. Have you had a chance since writing this or being involved with this document to read the evidence of the applicant, particularly Mr. Joyce, who talks about the efficiency of the water bottling plant?
No,
Okay. And it's not a criticism, this is just me asking questions.
thank you, yes.
And see down the bottom of the page under the heading Environmental Offsetting and Compensation, that discussed offsetting but didn't really kind of come to a conclusion. Is the suggestion that in this case offsetting might be appropriate? And if so, what might that involve? Or was this just a general raising of the issue?
I believe that's a general raising of the issue. Again, it's attached to timing. What we seek is the decline and this carrying on of the existing consented activity at current rate and volumes while we engage with Regional Council on the preparation of regulation.
Yeah,
This would come after that.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, that's the end of that document. The next series of questions relates to the submission that, Leonie, that you wrote. And I may not need to ask as many questions now, but I'll just check. Oh, yeah, now, page 3, do you see in the middle of the page there's a heading that says Te Runanga o Ngāti Awa seeks the following decisions? Yeah, so number 3, I just wanted, it's not a question, but just a point, we as a panel can't do number 3, so we don't have that ability. So just to let you know that we as a panel couldn't grant that relief. We can't review all existing permits, etc. We can only deal with this application. So it's something the council could do, but we're not the council.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, on page 4, you see under item number 8, there's a concern about seepage of contaminants from the ground, I take it, into the aquifer, and you mentioned dairy discharges and the Tasman mills. The evidence we've had is that the aquifer that the applicant wishes to draw water from, the 230 metre deep aquifer, is what's called an artesian aquifer. So if you drill a bore into the aquifer, the water rises 18 metres above ground level at the top of the well, so it's under a positive pressure. So there's always an upwards positive pressure from that aquifer, which makes it impossible for things to leak down because there's a very strong upward pressure. Is that your understanding as well?
Well, I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist.
Yeah, but you wrote this.
So I accept what you're
Okay.
proposing is potentially correct.
Okay. And that was all because the other ones have been addressed. And I'll just look through the cultural effects assessment just to see if I have any questions there that I haven't already asked you in relation to the other documents. Oh, look, just one little question. It's way over on page 28. And it's the 8th paragraph down, which states, Ngāti Awa is also concerned at the potential for the hydrology.
ko heka.
Yeah, it's page 28. This is from the Ngāti Awa CEA.
Oh,
Oh, look, I can ask you the question. The paragraph talks about the wetland system at the Te Kuhika Swamp Park. And how far away is that wetland from the water bottling plant, roughly?
Roughly 4 kilometres
Okay,
to the north.
okay. And that's the end of my questions. All the other ones, Beverly, you answered in relation to that first document. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Antoine, any further questions arising?
I did have, these are probably not questions as such as more information requirements. So I think they're going to be for the officers, but you may be able to help them. I've talked about statutory acknowledgements, and I'm quite interested in understanding what exactly are the notification requirements for the statutory acknowledgements. They're normally included in the
It's a summary
in
of consents.
the deed of settlement, and then recognised in the legislation. So I'm just wanting the exact words for the Ngāti Awa deed of settlement related to notification for the statutory acknowledgements. And then there may or may not be any clauses in regards to powers that are duties conferred to decision makers in regards to those consents. So I want to know if there are any, just having the exact text of that.
Okay.
That's all.
Is it appropriate to do anything?
Yeah, I can do that.
You can do that, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Ka motu ngā pātai o te tepu, that's the end of our questions from the tepu. Hui anō he mihi kawana kia koutou ngā karangarangatanga kei wainganui a koutou. E mihi kawana tuatahi ki te rangatire e koro i timatai tātou wāhanga, runga ka kupu te atua. Atua rua kia koe e te kanohi rangatahi. E tu ana i runga te atamira, e tino pai tō kōrero ngākau kia mātou. He mihi kawana kia koe e tū, mō tō tū. I te whakaputa ngā kōrero a kāinga. Ngā kōrero a kāinga, e mihi kawana kia koe. O te ai te tohunga e te rangatira a pauroto, e tino mihi, e tino te mihi aroha kia koe. I whakaputa ngā kōrero, te mana, te mauri, te tapu o ngā kōrero. E mio tā tātou tepu ngare kei te mihi, kei te mihi, kei te mihi. O tira kia koe Leone, I whakakapia ngā kōrero o te iwi, mō māua ko ta tipu no reira. He mihi kawana kia o koutou katoa, kia koe Beverly, I whakamārama ngā mea o ngā mahitaka wainga. Nare he mihi kawana kia koe, kia o koutou katoa. No reira, e tukuna te rāku kia o koutou I whakakapia tātou wāhanga mō tēnei wā. So I'm just acknowledge those speakers who've been before us today and acknowledged their time in answering some of our, what we call hoha questions, perhaps frustrating questions, just to get some of the detail. And now we've just asked them if it was appropriate for them to close their particular part of the hearing now, and then we'll carry on. Kia ora.
Were there any questions from any others?
No, they don't get to ask you.
They don't get to ask.
Yes, thank you.
It's only our job, eh?
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
Kia ora no tātou, weno Rob, kōrua tahi ko taku tuakana, Anton, kei te mihi atu. I runga I te rongo wairua, kua kitea kua rangona. Taku mōhio, I runga I te āhua wā kōrua whakatako to kōrero, I runga I te āhua wā kōrua patapatai, he wairua aroha kei roto. Nō reira, tēnei te tuake nei, mātau, ngā te awa whānui, me ona hapu kāranganako. Tai atu kia koe pāpā pātio, kai kuna i koe o tēnā taha o tāua, te wahanga ki a tūwhare toa. Noho kutahi nei, te ni aotanga o ngā iwi e rua, me te iwi Māori whānui tonu. Ngā kaunui, mātau ki tēnei kaupapa Rob, kōrua ko Anton, ke whakamana tia tā mātau i tūmanako i ai. Nō reira ka waiho tia, ki roto i wā kōrua ringaringa, hei wānanga, hei kōrero, hei whiriwhiri, ko te hea te ara e tikāna, ke putai te oranga mo te o tākiritanga, te toki ai te tūmoana. Nā te mea nāna te kaupapa i karangati ai tātou, kia hui tātou ki konei tēnei rā. Ko mātou e nei, ngā uri whakaheke iho, i te wai me te puna. Ko te mea nui ke, ko tutuki i te wahanga, kia mātou i whai wāhi ai, tōna reo, i whai wāhi ai, te wairo o te puna me te mauri o te puna kia rango nai. Kia whakatinana hea i tōna mana, ki roto i ngā kōrero, kei mua i o kōru aroaro mo tēnei rā. Nō reira kāmihi ki te kaunihera whakatāne, tēnei kaupapa nui a pōpō ko te hikoi, ki te whakamana i ngā tūru Māori, ki runga i te kaunihera, tēnā kaupapa. E hāngai ana ki tēnei kaupapa, mana Māori, mana motuhaki. Tai atu ki toi moana, me koutou o Nungfu, harai te mea he kōrero whakaiti nei a koutou, engari ko te puna, te mea nui ko te wai, o tō mātou tipuna te kaupapa nui, te kaupapa matua. I tai a tinana mai, i tai a whakaaro kaupapa kotahi ai ngā hapū, i tēnei rā, kia rango nai, te reo o tō mātou tipuna ai te tūmoana i tēnei rā. Nō reira ka waihotia, wēnei kōrero i konei. Hei whakaotia ke, kei roto i te pukapuka nei, tō mātou waiata, he waiata tangi, hei whakakapi ake te āhuatanga o wā mātou kōrero, mātaku tuakana nā awhi hei taki, ara te waiata nei, te tangi mō matahina. E tangi nei mātou mō te wai, e tangi nei mātou mō te puna, e tangi nei mātou mō tō mātou tipuna, kia whakamana tiai e koutou, tā mātou e tūmana ko hiai, kia whakaorai te puna, mō tēnei wā, mō ngauri whakatipuranga, whai muri i honei i a mātou. Nō reira kāmihi kia koe he mana, ko tātou, taku whaia Sarah, ka aroha rā ki tēnei āhuatanga, engari e kore e motu te taura here tangata.
Kia ora.
Ko koe, ko hau, ko koe, ko tātou.
Ai.
Aha koa kei runga tātou i ngā taha i rua o te taiapa, engari ko tāua no tāua he manu. Ka mihi ki a koe te rangatira o Pahipoto, te kaumātu o Pahipoto, te kanohi whakakite nei i ngā paukai o te kiingitanga, tēnei te tuake ki te mihi atu ki a koe. Ia tātou e tau nei hurino i tō tātou wharai, tēnā koutou ki ora tātou katoa.
Kia ora.
E te rangi nei te rua mahara e roto ora ki a haura kanopa i ane e pani ke te whenua te tangata e noho wai rangi nei a popo kare tire tiki he a katahuri noa apanoa kei he ara he tanga mo te wai wai he a te pai o te no hoi konei e a tarere ai ki poe a ke na kei no hoi konei rongo rawa i te wā au ai mai e te tipua mai e te tapito mai e te kāhui o ngariki mai e te whiwhi atu ki aorongo tuturu whakamau ai kia tīna ui e kahui kia ora tātou
Thank you very much. Now, the next submitter on our list is Helen Sisley. Good morning and welcome. Now, you don't have to stand at that lectern unless you're really keen to. You can sit down at the front table and use that other microphone if you're more comfortable doing that.
Thank you.
You know, if you stand at the lectern, you have to sing a song first.
You won't like it. First of all, I'd like to thank my te runanga o Ngāti Awa and whānau coming here today. Moi anō, my name is Helen Sisley. I'm from Ngāti Awa ki Rangitaiki. I whakapapa to the spring. I am part of the ahika and a kaitiaki. I oppose the application simply because our water is a tonga for our use here in Aotearoa. Just recently, I have suffered 2 bouts of cancer, and the only thing that could bring me here today was I drank a lot of our water. And our water it is a tonga, and it carries that wairua. Wairua has no boundaries. Exporting our tonga overseas to help others. Our water needs to stay here in Aotearoa, simply because the state of our waters here in Aotearoa are not in a very good way. There's fluoride, I hear, being put into water in Kawerau and possibly Whakatane. I mean, that's not good for our health. And my point here is you're sending our pure water overseas and we're getting second-class water here. I don't think that makes sense. So I'd also like to mention that it goes against the Treaty of Waitangi in the second article of the Treaty of Waitangi. So to round it all off, our water is a tonga. It has been given to us by our atua. Therefore, we should respect that. And as for our Chinese applicants, I suggest they go home and look after their own water as well. Nō reira, kia ora tātou katoa.
Don't go away just yet.
Tēnā.
Any questions? No questions? No. And I have no questions. Neither of us have any questions for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next submitter on our list is Ngāti Tūwhoretoa BOP Settlement Trust. Spence McClintock and Jamie Kino.
Kino.
Oh, that's easier. So good morning and welcome. Just to treat you in the same manner that we've treated other submitters.
Kaya koutou te wā, the floor is yours.
Kia ora koutou.
Ka tika ora tātou. Kia ora tātou, kōrua nā rangatira e noho mai nana. Me ki ko ngā parirau e noho nei, ki taha matau, a tēnei taha no hoki. Kia tātou e te iwi Māori, ki te iwi putahi tātou e noho nei, e whakananga nei tātou i te nera. Koe nei tā tāhua, o te tū, o te noho o ngā tuakana me ngā tai, ki runga e te kaupapa aroha, ko ihia ki runga i a tātou katoa. Me te miha no hoki, ki te rangi whakapuakina nei, a ki tō tātou atu e te rangi, mai rā e ki te pito o te wai, ana ki te pito au atu hoki ki te wai o te rangi, a ko ahu mai ko tātou, i roto i a tātou ko ngā wairua o te wairua. Tō reira e mihi nei tēnei ki a tātou i noho nei. Whakarongo nei ki ngā kōrero, ko tahi te kaupapa, ko tahi te tangata e here i a tātou i tēnei rā, i kōrero he ake nea, ko tamawhiro, kia maumahara tātou ki tēnā tupuna e here i a tātou ki rota ngā iwi o rangitai. Ka rewe he ngā wainginu i a tātou, i mai raro te tupuna nei a tamawhiro, me wana tamariki a hine kauau me tū mōkai. Nā rāua ka here hia, tēnei āhuatanga ki nui a tātou. Ka mihi au ki ngā whanaunga nei, tāputaha ngā tihawa. Anei rā ngā tihawa tuturu e tūmai nei i muri a koutou. E tuturu tēnei, ngā mahi e roto nei e tūana. Tai ana hoki i pahe poto e tūmai nei, i rongotangi awa e tūmai nei i muri a koutou. Anei rā me ki ngā maha marae i nui te rangitai. Anei re tūaroha mai nei ki muri a koutou. O tātou wēne. Nā kōrero nā tātou katoa. No reira, me ki me pēnei. I rongo koutou e tahi o ngā kupu e puta mai nā. Anei rā, kia hoki nei au ki te Māori o tōku iwi. Kei kauerau ko te keta pautama. Kei waitaha nui ko i rā kewa. Ki te atua re tahi ko tūpai. Whakakau a riki o tā more nui. Kei o takaora ko te wai o taku tūpuna tūwhare toa i te apa. Tūwhare tātou katoa tērā. Tātou katoa tērā. Hei ara ake i tāku moe, ko ia e ara e. Kia here hia hoki tēnei kōrero ki inui a tātou, ko te wai kōrero hi ake nei. He rua ngā wai kei rere ana, ko te ranga a uataha. Ko te ranga a uataha, ko tā more nui. A me ki rā, me te wai rere atu. Kia kauanga wareware o ki te rā wai. Engari, ko ngā me ki o ēnā wai hei awhi a tātou i tēnei rā, ko te tarawera o au atu ki te rangitai. Hine mataroa anō hoki. Kia kaue waraware i tērā. Nā tangi, nā mate i kōhi me tangi hia. E mātou e kauerau. Nā tangi o kauerau mā koutou e kōhi. E tangi mai. No te āhuatango ngā kōrero o ira tūmoa. I pēnā o ku kōrero. Tēnei rā, ka tai tātou i roro te tuanui ko tahi, hei tangi o tātou mate katoa. Ka reo katia i ngā kaitiaki o te whenua. Nō reira, ka re tōrohi e te kōrero. E mihi nei, tangi nei mo tēnei wai, kei mua i a tātou. I roto i te roa tātou nohanga, a pāpaki raumati. E kia nei hoki te tupu, e te kaponga e reira, o te tupuna, o te kaitaki nei, a whewhe kei te taha e nohoi. Nō reira ka mihi atu noho ki ai. Nō reira ka re tōrohi e te kōrero i nā rangatira, hei kōrero he whakapuaki mō tātou i tēnei rā. Huri no, kia ora tātou, kia ora te rangatira i noho nei kōrero. Kia ora.
Tēnā kōrero, Commissioners, tēnā koutou Council, and tēnā koutou te hunga ora. Nā mihi, nā te awa, thank you for your words this morning, and we tūwharetāia tai toko your messages. And congratulations, Creswell, you've found an activity to galvanise tūwharetāia and nā te awa on almost every point. Ko Spence McClintock, taku ingoa, and I'm assisted by my colleague Jaime Quinau. I'm the Chief Executive of the Tūwharetāia Bay of Plenty Settlement Trust group of companies, and I'll just make some key points today on behalf of the Tūwharetāia group, but that's not on behalf of all Tūwharetāia individuals, and so we thank the Council for the notification process to allow anyone to participate. I'll briefly cover our connection, how we came to being, and our connection through statutory acknowledgements with this taonga. Just some brief outline of our companies, and why for us it's not just from a iwi perspective, but from a business perspective, the importance of maintaining high quality resources within the rohi. And I'll just touch on some history of a few unintended consequences that we see from our perspective of development not done well. And then I'll allow my colleague Jaime, who is a geothermal reservoir expert, to parallel some of his knowledge from the geothermal industry with the water aquifer that we're discussing here today. So Tūwharetāia settled in 2003, and as part of the settlement of the Tūwharetāia grievances, there was a statutory acknowledgement over the Tarawera River. So I know there was a question this morning about the specifics of that, and so we're happy to provide the article. It's our interpretation that it also encompasses the natural resources, and we would include the aquifer in that. I just want to touch on the fundamental duty of the Ngāti Tūwharetāia Settlement Trust, that it's consistent, that everything we do is part of performing the overall duties, kaitiakitanga, tikanga, and looking after managing and protecting natural resources in a sustainable way. This is consistent with a tikanga for present and future generations, and it's our role as kaitiaki, or as a kaitiaki, to achieve preservation of these resources for future generations. Kaitiaki and kaitiakitanga as principles about creating and fostering long-term and respectful usage of natural resources, and an interconnection between those resources and the people who use them. This aspect is important. Resources do not use or manage themselves. It's the people who do, and it's the people who exercise daily guardianship over them. This use and guardianship must be based on respect and understanding. And if I could draw a parallel with our business of our geothermal assets business, we're currently the temporary custodians of that resource on behalf of all future generations. So we take very seriously how we utilise that resource to turn that resource into a usable outcome for the people of Tuwharetoa. But it's not just for this generation, it's for future generations. So Ngāti Tuwharetoa Settlement Trust watch over the area in question and its natural resources, along with others. We're not saying we do that on our own, to preserve those resources for future generations. To give practical respect to the principles and shared responsibilities of guardianship, Ngāti Tuwharetoa Settlement Trust exercise kaitiaki and kaitiakitanga over the kawarau area and natural resources. We have a holdings business, and in our holdings business, we own a lot of land assets, and we're very careful to look after those land assets in a sustainable way. We recently purchased an electricity plant to assist providing sustainable electricity within the national grid, and again it's an example of careful and sustainable use of resources. Our group also refer to ourselves as Tuwharetoa mai kawarau ki te tai, so from kawarau to the sea, and within our rohi we're blessed with an abundance of natural resources such as geothermal and fresh water. Maintaining these resources to a high standard is of cultural, spiritual and business importance to the people of Ngāti Tuwharetoa Bay of Plenty. The overall welfare and prosperity of our people is dependent on maintaining what remains of the natural resources within our rohi. There is a history of unintended consequences. An example of this, the mill example has been used already in terms of the pollution of the Tarawera River. Another example is the draining of the lower reaches of the Tarawera River had a consequence of lowering the level of the river back up at Kawarau. This is also attributed to accelerating the demise of the geothermal surface features within the Kawarau area. These geothermal surface features were utilised by the people of Ngāti Tuwharetoa, and they're no longer present. Intensive agriculture developments also had a negative effect on freshwater quality within the Tarawera River, again an unintended consequence. People of Tuwharetoa Bay of Plenty are still suffering today from the negative and unforeseen consequences of these developments and their impact on the resources. In conclusion, I strongly urge the Commissioners to consider either declining or at best approving a staged approach to the water take requested by Creswell New Zealand Limited. The 5 million litres per day requested is approximately 1,000 times increase over the water taken from the local bottling plant today. I understand there's some inquiry about this scale. In round terms, in my assessment of what was achieved in the last year was about 1.4 million litres of bottled water from the current operations. The consent, and I think there's careful use of units required here. The consent requests 1.1 billion litres, so that's 3 decimal points or 1,000 times. Given how precious this natural resource is to Ngāti Tuwharetoa and the Bay of Plenty people, a patient approach to its utilisation is requested. I'll now ask my colleague Jaime Kono.
Just before you do, we'll see if we have any questions for you.
I did have just a few questions of clarification. You mentioned the term temporary guardians, were you...
Or the individuals involved, and it revolves through generations. So.
Oh, okay, so you're the current
Yes.
guardians
Yes.
for future generations. Cool, that's good, thank you. Yesterday we had some evidence, and this must be my short-term memory loss. We had some evidence yesterday about the increase in the take for bottling, and the evidence was that, from memory, that it was about 4.2 times the current take. That's my
I think
recollection.
there's a huge difference between the permitted take and what's actually occurring.
Okay.
So there's a manifest, there's a large consent, basically unutilised or underutilised today. So we can only go on what the potential requested application is for.
This is a question that you can choose to answer or not, but I'm interested if you have any particular interests in bottling of water in the future, or you have any investments in bottling at the present time.
We ourselves do not have any investments or interest in bottling water. More broadly, our business is based on careful utilisation of resources. But no, we haven't researched or investigated the business sense or otherwise of bottled water operations.
You mentioned electricity generation as one of your businesses. Are there any others related specifically to geothermal waters or fluids or liquids?
We are investigating other businesses that are related to geothermal at the moment. Possibilities for tourist-related activities to do with geothermal.
Okay.
But yeah, our business has a broad range of geothermal customers, so anything from wood processing, newsprint manufacture, tissue manufacture, as well as electricity, and we're in the process of supporting a milk powder drying plant as well.
Okay. You would have heard my previous questions when we had representatives of Ngāti Awa and other hapu, and certainly with the council officers in regards to the statutory acknowledgements and some of the detail of those. So I'm asking you the similar question. If you have your hand on those, that would be quite good to have the text related to where specifically the statutory acknowledgements. I see you've got provided evidence and has those little A4 maps with a... And I was looking at the boundaries of some of those, and the little red and yellow lines are probably at least, I don't know, 800 metres thick.
Yeah.
And so,
So we can add...
if there is anything more definite, that would be helpful, and then any specific things related to the statutory acknowledgements, where they apply, and any powers or duties that are conferred on decision makers from those, that would be helpful as well.
Great.
And no further questions from me.
Tēnā koroa to the commissioners, tēnā koutou to the council, tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Jaime Kinau. I'm Kaipukaha, or Senior Resources Engineer for Ngāti Tuwharetoa Holdings Limited, and I'm here to represent Ngāti Tuwharetoa Settlement Trust, Bay of Plenty, and to share our experience in the management and monitoring of the Kawerau Ngafa and the overlying groundwater system, and why these are relevant in explaining our concerns for this project as presented in our cultural impact assessment and as has been highlighted by Spence McClintock, specifically on the persistence of the risk of unintended consequences, concerns on the sustainability of the proposed take, and concerns on the lack of proposed conditions for monitoring the characteristics of the aquifer itself and the potential adverse effects to its health and the health of the surrounding environment. So our extensive experience at the Kawerau Ngafa includes information and knowledge from more than 25 years of monthly monitoring and observation of purposely drilled groundwater monitoring wells overlying the Ngafa. That experience and collective knowledge have taught us that groundwater resource systems could be complex, dynamic, influenced by changes in the level of rainfall and changes in the level of the river and surrounding water systems. These groundwater resource systems are underground, only observable at locations that tap into the resource, such as wellbores. It is similar to peeking into a large closed room through a small hole in the wall and only seeing a part of it. In this regard, the information from one well is only a small part of a whole and is similar to geothermal systems in terms of uncertainty. From this experience, we find that the level of integrated geoscientific information presented by the applicant to assess the characteristics and effects of the project is lacking for a subsurface system with inherent uncertainties. We recognize and acknowledge that a numerical model was used in the assessment. In our experience, all models are wrong, but some models are useful. Their usefulness is determined by the level of information used in their construction and calibration. Because the level of information is lacking, the usefulness of the model to assess effects is also limited. Based also on our experience, the claims by the applicant that the effects of this project on the aquifer and the environment, as no more than minor, cannot be guaranteed due to the inherent uncertainties that we believe were insufficiently accounted for by the applicant's assessment. The risk of unintended consequences from the take of 5 million liters per day of water persists. We also would like to share our experience with proving and managing sustainability of take from a subsurface system, from an underground system. We believe that there is potential for allocation based on the allocation method, but the water allocation process used by the applicant, we believe, is only a first-order assessment and cannot be used to argue for sustainability without demonstrating the cumulative impact of this activity on top of existing allocation at full consented takes, taking into account the uncertainties of the aquifer characteristics. In our experience, a large volume of take from a single location has a larger pressure drawdown effect than a similar volume of take over a larger area from smaller wells. This is not appreciated in an allocation methodology, but will be apparent in a numerical simulation model. While the well drilled by the applicant is artesian in nature, there is no certainty that this well will remain artesian and that the aquifer will remain artesian after long-term extraction, especially as the applicant does not propose to monitor the aquifer characteristics itself. I should also highlight that we believe the artesian behavior of the aquifer was not sufficiently modeled by the applicant's numerical simulation. It is our experience that the onus of proving sustainable take is upon the applicant and not limited by what technology and methodology are available to the regional council. It is also our experience that sustainable subsurface takes from complex and dynamic systems should be sufficiently modeled, taking into account existing consented takes and additional applied takes, and this model maintained by the applicant with ongoing monitoring information. The regional council does not have a geothermal numerical model, but we developed one to ensure we can assess the health of the reservoir. We have regularly measured our wells in the NAFA and the groundwater systems on top of it to improve our understanding and improve the usefulness of our geothermal reservoir model. So with these above uncertainties that we've mentioned, we are still quite concerned that there is a lack of consent conditions specific to the aquifer health. And with that, I close my evidence.
Okay, thank you
Tēnā
for
koutou
that.
katoa.
Questions?
This might be appropriate to ask a broader question. I've read the submission and heard what you've said today, and I'm asking what's the key reason why you're making these submissions? Just in terms of understand
As an iwi in close proximity or within the rohi, a key natural resource within the rohi. There are, there's a few treasures left, this is one of them.
So the submissions you're making are not related to your own business and investment
No, we're
roles
drawing
and
on our
responsibilities, but you're focused on the guardianship,
Yep.
those
We-
particular roles of your organisation on behalf of the members of Tūwhare Toki Kaurau Ki
That's
Tau.
right. And we're drawing on our experiences and ability gained from running those businesses.
I just had a question for you. No, I want to get the name right. Jaime Konau?
Yeah.
Excellent. We've got your brief of evidence and it has your qualifications there. So my question is just around how the qualifications may have related specifically to groundwater or any experience you've had with groundwater. Because it's quite clear you've got experience with geothermal. I just wanted to know what your experience might be in terms of groundwater.
While my experience is in geothermal, most of our monitoring and reservoir surveillance activities include groundwater systems and specifically drilled groundwater monitoring wells. The groundwater systems are very similar to any other subsurface water systems. It's just that we have temperature and we have heat with our systems. We were drawing parallels to our experience because we believe that the groundwater system is more similar to geothermal systems rather than to rivers or lakes or surface bodies of water where you can see what is happening immediately. So the science behind both groundwater and geothermal are very similar with the added complexity of thermodynamics for geothermal.
Thank you. And the years of experience in this area?
10 years.
10 years. Thank you. Excellent. Yep.
I just got a couple of questions for you, and full disclosure, I was the planning witness for Mighty River Power's Kaurau geothermal applications, which you probably remember. I've also been a commissioner on geothermal power station consents in Northland and in the Waikato, so I know a little bit about geothermal systems and the Kaurau system in particular. I take it that your technical evidence to us is suggesting that geothermal systems and groundwater aquifer systems operate in the same way, and your evidence makes a great deal about potential subsidence.
Yes.
Now, as you know and I know, subsidence in geothermal field results from the loss of pressure and or temperature reductions at depth, quite often 1 kilometre or 2 kilometres deep, quite often where there hasn't been historical re-injection, resulting in the depressurisation of a compressible layer of rock.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works in a geothermal system. Are you saying that same mechanism applies to this aquifer in this application?
I would say so as well.
And sorry, just before you go on, what is that based on? Why do you think that there's a compressible body of rock associated with this aquifer?
We believe that the pressures are the ones that should be monitored for this aquifer to ensure that there is a minimal risk of subsidence. What we believe in our submission, as we've identified, is that the appropriate person to assess that would be a geomechanics expert, and we have not seen that kind of evidence presented to us. It was presented to us that the aquifer system is artesian, but in the long term, what kind of long-term effects on the pressure would this kind of take have? And we don't see that there is enough evidence to show that the pressures are going to remain the same. Therefore, the assumption that subsidence is not going to take place is unsupported.
Yeah, sorry, that wasn't actually the question I asked you, so I'll ask my question again so you're clear what I'm asking you. In response to one of my earlier questions, you said you believe there's a compressible body of rock associated with this particular aquifer. My question was, what evidence is that view based on?
Most permeable systems would be compressible because there are spaces in the rocks for the water to flow in. So changes to the pressure would result in the compression of these rocks. I don't have direct evidence that particular layers are the ones that are compressible. But any aquifer with spaces and fractures through the rocks, once depressurized, would compact in most cases. And there are extensive literature around groundwater systems that are over-extracted that results in subsidence. So that's where our concerns lie.
Okay. Informing your, the technical views that you're conveying to us, what documentation developed by the applicant have you read?
We've read the technical reports that they've had. We've read the basis for the numerical modeling.
So just step back. So have you read the application document?
Yes.
Have you read the evidence of the applicant's groundwater expert?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any further questions? No. And I have no further questions either. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just before we, just off the record, is just that she's sitting here listening for the technical stuff. But I'm going to say it's nothing to do with any technical stuff. Especially boundaries. Boundaries to us are made up with habitat rather than a line. So within that habitat is your resources. So we cannot pinpoint our issue today unless you have, it is based through the habitat and the structure of the people. And on that basis, when we have a look at nature, and if we have a look at programs such as newborn baby, for example, animals, when there's a threat to them, the whole herd comes together and protects it. And we've seen it often. What I'm saying here, we have all come together for that little spring of water. Thank you, kia ora. May the peace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with us, and the strength of our Lord, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit, which passes all understanding, be with us now and forevermore. Amen. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora. Thank you, Gordon.
Oi nā te whare tūpuna, kei te kōpū, kei oni ae, ka kuku ka niau ki te awa o te atua. Tīkina te awa tarariki, kia wakapau karakia. Ara, ara, ara e, tupiki tia o maunga. Whakarongo ki o wai, piki hi ana maunga. A whakapau kōrero, a o tamapiri, a mokai nārara. O te whakamuru maru, o nā titu wharetoi.
Kia ora tātou. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you very much for that. We're now going to adjourn for lunch and we'll reconvene at 1:15. Thank you. Sure. So, sorry, if we could just remain quiet. The applicant just wishes to address the assembled submitters.
Thank you, sir. Kia ora tātou katoa. Dave Randall is my name. I'm a lawyer acting for the applicant, obviously, and I'm here with my colleague Alana Callan-Wagner. Just wanted to say two things and kind of mark the end of the evidence of the tangata whenua submitters who opposed the applications. Two things very quickly. The first thing I wanted to say was just that I'm from somewhere else. I'm from outside this place, and a number of us here are from near and far. And I just wanted to acknowledge the people of this place and say that it's a privilege and a pleasure to be here in this beautiful place and at this hearing with you all. So that's the first thing I wanted to acknowledge. The second point briefly was just I'm conscious that one or two of you were here yesterday and a number of you weren't. And at the start of this hearing I spoke on behalf of the applicant, and I just wanted to reiterate one or two of those messages there really briefly. It was just that on behalf of the company, of Creswell, that it's really highly motivated to be a respectful part of this place and to build relationships with you all, to listen, to take time to speak with you and build something on an ongoing basis, really, all together and in a deeply respectful way. Clearly, there are views that differ, but I wanted to acknowledge on behalf of the company that it understands the views that have been so beautifully expressed today and through the other documents and submissions that have been made, and respects those views, and looks forward to discussing them with you into the future. Kia ora.
All right, thank you for that, and thank you to this morning's submitters. Now, like I said, we're adjourned until 1:15 when we carry on hearing from other submitters. Thank you.
Kia ora.